Fred, how are you, Ade?
I'm beginning to relax. I'm excited for this podcast.
Well, Ade is show number 2 of the Coffee Diaries.
Yeah.
The first one was a lot of fun, finding our voice, exploring these topics.
Mm.
You know what, Ade, as well, I was thinking, shall we go into how we met? I was thinking, it was just a chance occurrence, wasn't it?
Yeah. Why don't you tell the story?
I think you were on a site, a spiritual site, I think, and maybe I saw something that I liked that you posted, or you saw something of mine that I posted, and we connected.
Yeah.
And then we started working together. We did the interviews with each other on each other's podcast. I met Dre Day, and you met Sumarati.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just it's interesting, really, that we've never met physically, but we've spoken to each other many times. You're in New York, I'm in London, and how we're not limited by these nations or oceans, or we can connect.
Yeah, it is interesting that we're able to connect in this way, and I think we connected even on a deeper level when I called you and we began talking on. I think we talked for over an hour,
Yes.
in that conversation, and that's where I think a lot of the ideas for doing a podcast and really working together came up, and collaborating. And one of the things that was fun that day is what you like to call playing jazz. Just playing, and I think part of the way I'm able to do that is to first have a sort of acceptance of where I am at the moment. So instead of hiding, so I think you've been one of the supports that has helped me come out of my hiding nature. And into, in the first episode, we talked about finding our voice. So that's something that's still coming up for me now, is finding that voice, and so it's been a really interesting journey.
Yeah, and I like as well how we finished the topic last week, and then we said, okay, what's next week's? And then immediately you came up with moving into authenticity, and straight away, that's the topic,
Yeah.
And I think it feeds on really nicely from where we were last week.
Yeah.
And what I like about what we're doing, I guess it's what we're going through right now. We're not being objective. We're not like just finding things. It's what you're going through, what I'm going through, what we're thinking, what we're talking about. So it's our everyday lived experience. And I guess that feeds into, being authentic.
Yes. Our everyday lived experience, which for me includes a lot of anxiousness and a feeling of awkwardness. And it feels like a workout sometimes to be able to express that and to share that, and but that's the beginning for me. That's needed, and I think one of the things that, at least in my case, one of the important things to be able to do that is to, I came to the sort of conclusion, it just came to me one day that, I'm here for a reason. I deserve to take up space. I deserve to be here. My perspective and opinions matter. This part that wants to express in its way is just as important. So when being authentic, sometimes, especially in the culture we live in today, it's set up to compare, you know, um, be this way or be that way, and it's turned up in social media. It's a lot of times just compare with status, compare yourself to what another person has, how another person looks, and things like that. And so we, as humans, I think that ties into this survival mechanism of ours because, we are adapters. So we kind of mimic certain ways so that we feel safe and that we survive. So if the pack is doing something, and we have this basic instinct, the social instinct, to have a group, to be accepted, to be welcome, to have that support. And so we kind of fall into this this conditioning of mimicking other people, of comparing ourselves to other people. That's just a natural thing. But as you and I talked about in the last episode, the world doesn't need another Ade and another Ron. We need these authentic expressions, and so I don't know if I came up with the title of it. I think you came up with this title. I think our last conversation, if I remember correctly, I think you came up to, well, how do we move into expressing this, out in the world? But
Because it's very challenging, isn't it? We grow up and we're kind of told this is right, this is wrong, do this, do that, this is the way to go, this is not the way to go.
yeah,
And it's so difficult sometimes to just be yourself, because the question you ask yourself is, am I enough? Is
yeah,
being me enough? Will I be liked? Will I, so a lot of times we do things and that's not really what we want to do or really want to be. And I think there's something lacking in us, or we lack something then, because we always feel that there's something not quite right if we're doing something to fit in. And I think we live in a sea of inauthenticity around us, as you said, with the social media, in politics, in life, in shops, in way things are. People wanting to sell you something, make you better, give you something. But I guess the question is, who am I and how can I be me? And like you said, the hundreds and thousands of ancestors that we have are coming. We are the very reason for them living right now.
Yeah.
And if you see that, and that's extraordinary, really. Who am I? What can I do? What is my passion? What is my gift? What can I offer?
Yeah.
How do I feel? But today, talking about authenticity. So I had a yoga class, or yoga meditation class, or as we call it with the 3-year-olds, maduration.
Say that again, maduration?
Maduration. And a 3-year-old, so how that name came up was, I was talking to the 3-year-olds and I said, what is it that we're doing? And one of them said, maduration. He couldn't say meditation. And I thought, that's perfect, because he brought together meditation and imagination together.
Yeah.
So now we call it maduration. So I was in the class and we start with the deep breathing. Then I do an exercise where we raise our hands and I tell them to lower their fingers slowly, slow as you can. So I brought my hands down And I saw there was one child who was still up there. And my first instinct was to speed him up because we're short of time. And I stopped myself because in thinking that I wasn't being authentic to the meditation, I was thinking of time. I was thinking of something else. And he was doing exactly what I had asked him to do. He had slowed it down. So I changed the class to what he was doing. And something amazing came out of that. So I'm with 8 3-year-olds, and there was this moment of just silence, where I learned something. Because my first instinct was to speed him up, to change it. No, he was teaching me in that time, yes, slow it right down. And I went with him, and the teacher-student kind of thing kind of dropped away. And for that moment, this 3-year-old was the teacher, and that was the authenticity of that class.
Yeah. That's a beautiful story. It's I don't know if I told you my son is on the spectrum. He's autistic, so he relates to the world in a different way than many people do. And one of the things that I can understand exactly the feelings that came up for you at first, and you caught them as well. Sometimes I catch them come up with my son. Sometimes I don't. I think generally most of the times I catch them. He's doing something. Wait, you're not supposed to be doing it, and it triggers that that conditioning. It triggers the identity. It triggers this feeling of just wanting to feel. I feel terrified. Just when he does something that I think is not the way you're supposed to do it, I feel really terrified, inside. And right away, I try to change it, and I find that is the knee-jerk reaction, is to go in there. No, you have to do it that way, or you're gonna get in trouble. that's not what I'm consciously thinking, but that's the feeling. If you don't do it that way, we're gonna get in trouble somehow. So a lot of it is, don't be so loud. Don't make a mess. Don't jump. Sometimes we're outside. He'll just on the sidewalk. He'll jump up and down, and he would say, don't jump. Well, what do you? And he's. One day, I started doing what he was doing. I just let it go, and it was so. I understood, a little bit. There's I don't, but it just, I felt free. I felt like I can express. It just felt like I can, and then it gave more insight to the idea of, okay, well, maybe this is how he's dealing with the world. This is how he. One time I had a panic attack. I was just having a panic attack, and in that moment, I started going, and I started making noises and doing things just to, like, just to get the breath going, just to relieve some of the nervousness. And I realized that some of what I was doing is what he does. So I was doing some of the same things that he does, and at that moment, I just felt more connected in a natural way to my body and to my soul. There's this, it felt like the soul rather than the ego was expressing, in a natural and authentic way. And also what I noticed was a sort of side effect of that was compassion. I felt more compassion towards myself, towards my son, towards other people, and I felt love, because I think when we I'll speak for myself, when I'm not in that constrictive fear state, and when I'm just expressing and being authentic, I feel more in this space of love, of heart energy.
So we can say that from what you said, that in authenticity, there's a natural compassion and empathy, which
Yeah.
doesn't need to be sought. It's in the act. It's in the authenticity itself, for yourself and for others.
Yes, I believe so. I think first, because for me the first step is seeing it, is being, I guess you could use the word honest with myself. This is here, and I don't know if the compassion and empathy, maybe there's levels to it. I don't know if it comes right away. I think there sometimes is still that conditioning and that resistance. So the relationship to that part of myself, just the may still take some time to kind of relax, and to have more of a embracing relationship with it. And I think that also, the level of which I'm able to express in that way, um, also mirrors the level of where I am in that relationship. Am I relaxed? And right now in my life, I'm much more than I was like a month or two ago, because I am sort of jumping off of the ledge, taking that risk, and you know, eh, I can feel it in my body, and so from my personal experience, it just feels like it is what is needed. It is what is needed in the world, because I can finally say, I'm needed in the world. I deserve to be here. And therefore, other people as well, other people. So therefore, I feel it's important for us as a collective to support this. And, going back to what you were saying in your example in the classroom, I think that's really important. You kind of change the whole way that the classroom was doing it, and you supported this student being authentic, and also learning, because yeah. Mm.
And there's something that resonates with authenticity, I think, with those who watch or see or hear it, which transmits to everybody. So if you're singing, somebody may watch and may not like that style of music, but I think they connect on a level that they can see the real joy that is coming out of that person. Or you see somebody who's doing something and you stop and watch. And I think, what I found really interesting sometimes is when you see people reading books, and they're reading the book, and you can see that they're really into it, and you watch them, and there's something really amazing in just watching somebody read. They're totally engrossed in that book,
Yeah.
and there's something which I think in yourself you connect with, and that's an extraordinary moment. And the other person may not even know, but you feel it. and you take it with you. And I think that's the importance of, being authentic with ourselves. Because a lot of times when we're not, it's due to fear.
Yeah.
Fear of being criticized, fear of not being good enough, which, we're fed with so often. And if we allow it just to come through us, so, we feel we want to do something, we feel joy doing something. Yes, can I express it? I feel like jumping in that puddle. Let's go and jump in that puddle. I feel like running. Let's go and run. And even here right now with you and I, we enjoy do this. We do it, and we may have thoughts, oh no, what's going to happen? But we do it because no one's making us. We do it because we enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And that's something special in that, I think. And to notice it and to be honest with ourselves. You know what, Ade? I write songs because I enjoy writing them. And so I wrote some songs, and I thought it'll be interesting to hear someone else sing them. So I asked a few people, would you sing while I'm, strumming on guitar, which I've just learned really. So, and they said no, they wasn't really interested and so on. So I had these songs, and I always had in my head, they're for other people to sing. But Ade, there was some inauthenticity in that. The real truth was, if I'm honest, I was afraid to sing it.
Yeah.
So I justified it by saying, oh, I would like to hear this person's voice of it. And I justified it, Ade, and it was a great justification. It was, I'd like to hear this person's voice, or a woman's voice, or someone with a higher voice. And I justified it like this. But it was when I just saw that, I had to be honest with myself and admit it. That is part of it. Just to play. I enjoyed playing. Yeah. I enjoyed doing it, not for other people, not to be great. My voice is my voice. So like connected with last week, finding the voice. And maybe I was given a real gift by people saying no, they wouldn't sing. Because I think I had to be really authentic and what I had written and give my voice to it. And it's my voice, it's the individual voice, it's Ron Usha's voice. But there had to be some, I had to be honest. I had to be really honest. And say, yes, okay, it'll be nice to hear someone else singing it, but Ron Usha, a lot of the truth is you're afraid. And that was true. You're afraid.
Yeah, I've been there many times, and I remember that story from our first podcast. So I think that is a good setup because I see the guitar behind you, and I wonder if you'll play us just a little.
Okay. Let's be authentic. I'm thinking a bit of, I'm thinking a bit, do I really want to do this? Okay. 1 second, Eddie.
Hey.
Oh, God. Okay. So here's the voice trying to justify it. So what I hear myself thinking I'm going to say to you is, I haven't played for a while. Using video. Yeah, I haven't played for a while. I don't know the lyrics.
Yes.
But I think these kind of things are important. So let's do it.
Yeah. We're just playing. We're just playing.
We're just playing.
Just like kids.
Do you know what, Ade? There's a song that I wrote. I'm gonna do the first verse. Yes, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know the lyrics by heart, so you have to bear with me.
Remember what Seal said.
Remind me.
You don't have to know the lyrics.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. Here it is. Okay. This one's called "It Rains on a Sunday After All."
Okay.
I can feel my fingers a bit of a bit of nervous tension in my fingers.
Okay.
Okay. The trail of tears have started every May. I met a Cherokee woman who showed me her pain. The prophets had told of the battle she'd fight. She looked to the sunrise on her first night. And the raging storms came by surprise. We were drenched through to the inside. With a hand in mine, you could ask for more. But it rains on a Sunday after all. Yet the raging storms came out by surprise. We were drenched through to the inside. With a hand in mine, you could ask for more. But it rains on a Sunday after all.
Yeah! Woohoo! That was great.
Thank you very much.
Wow, that was. I didn't expect it. I thought you were, I thought you were gonna. That was beautiful. Yeah, that was really beautiful, and the lyrics too. You wrote that?
Yeah, I wrote that song. It's called "It Rains on a Sunday After All," and it's about. I've been reading about. Let me show you. I've been reading this book, An Indigenous People's History of the United States.
Oh, you got to send me a picture or something. Yeah.
So it's about. I've been reading about the Trail of Tears of the First Nations of America.
Okay.
And I met a Cherokee woman, and I was also interested in the writings of Dr. Imhotep. He says that the first Native Americans were Africans, so the story is the connection that we had.
Yeah.
And so I wrote that song. As I said, I really enjoyed writing it, and I thank you for. I can feel, just this allowing this opportunity to play it. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. You know who else I thank? Me. For asking you because I enjoyed it so much. but thank you too.
Yeah, but it just shows. You know what, Ade? Is it that we feel something if we just do it in the moment and not wait, because later on the mind comes in with, "Oh, am I good enough? Can I do it?" And so on.
Yeah.
But is it not like just grasping it as it is and going for it?
I think so. Yeah, it's just grasping. Like you can't catch. It's like anything you try to catch. If you're trying to catch a fly, you just have to. You can't second guess. You just got to try to catch it, and And that's the same thing with being authentic. It's just like catching flies. You know, I mean, catching flies and being authentic are two of the same. I can't think of a better analogy of what authentic means than catching a fly.
Do you know as well? I think when you say as well that if we're surrounded by trust and we trust ourselves and
Yeah.
we're okay with ourselves, and it's also okay for people not to like what we do. That's also okay, you know. Yeah,
You
yeah.
mean you didn't like my fly analogy? Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean that, but you know what? The freedom of not worrying about what other people are thinking. Because I think when we go to school and college and universities, we want to be liked, don't we? We want to be in the crowd. But there's a true sense that, you know, if you're just being yourself, and I thought what happens, you draw others to you who as well are being themselves.
Yeah.
And then we connect with other people, and I think there's something extraordinary in that, and you can build from that.
Yeah.
And we are so much more than what we think.
Mm.
We are so much more than what we see, and there's so much inside of us that that is there to come out.
Yeah.
And if you look at, you know, in the comic books with superheroes, that time before they realize they have their powers, they're just ordinary, aren't they? You know, so they don't really know. But it's inside them. Something happens one day and it clicks, doesn't it, with the superheroes, with the X-Men or, you know,
Yeah.
so. And then they let it out. It wasn't that they had to find something. They just had to be themselves.
Yeah.
So is it then that, in a way, the superhero analogy is just mimicking who we are as people? There are things inside of us that have been dormant, may not have been expressed. And it's not that we have to find it. It's there.
Yeah.
Being covered up by ego, conditioning, rights and wrongs, goods and bads. If we can sit with it and just let it out.
Yeah.
And the superhero in all of us is allowed to flourish. And the eccentricities that we've held in, we begin to like, you know, we begin to draw us to people. We can do the crazy, or we call them crazy things, we can do this, but we're being ourselves. And also, I think that starts great movements.
Yeah.
Where extraordinary things can happen. Ade, how do you sometimes deal with the fear or the nervousness that comes in the body sometimes when you would like to embark on something?
Oh, when I like to embark on something and I get nervous, how do I deal with it? I guess it depends on what it is. See, I'm pretty much a newbie at this. You know, I've as you know, and as I've shared before, I've always been a pretty subdued sort of person in terms of pretty much a fraud in a lot of ways, you know. And I don't mean that in a, you know, I'm not trying to put myself down or anything like that. It was just part of how I survived. So to the outside world, I just felt a lot of fear, you know, and but with my kids and people close to me, I'm always this silly type of person, and just having fun and expressing. But that part of me is coming out now. It's been coming out a lot recently, and so you know, so as I had a great opening of where this started to express in an authentic way, and once I tasted it, I felt like and I have years ago, there was years ago when this authenticity came out, and then there was this enormous fear that came, like this feeling I'm going to be punished, or like this is blasphemy or something. I don't know where these ideas came from, and I immediately, like a turtle, formed a new shell and just became this subdued. This time it's different. It's been consistent, and and it's been exhausting in some ways, because I'm having to confront that, and I'm getting to the answer. Having to confront that nervousness in the body, that fear that is, no, don't do it. And so what I've been doing lately is, one of the things is listening to music. That I appreciate you've been sending me music, and I'm not trying to people please or anything like that. That has been very helpful with moving the body. I've been dancing. I've been finding my own authentic way of dealing with it, rather than the just sitting. I am I am the self. I, just focus on the nothingness, or, just be very, very, very still, which has its place, but, I don't exist. You don't exist. None of us exist. There's no reason to have this conversation, yeah. Okay. You've heard that before. That's fine. But, I like the other day I went out in nature, and I I think my mom is probably watching, so I hope this doesn't make her nervous saying this story. But I went out into nature, and I felt like all of this stuff came up, all of this repressed stuff. And I just got down in the dirt, and was just feeling the getting the dirt in my hands, just moving around. And I was listening to, speaking about Native Americans, I was listening to this healing chant that is the best I've ever listened to. It really cracks your heart open, and I'll send it to you. I don't know if I ever shared it with you. And so much stuff came up, and there are people in the other side that might have been watching me or might not have, but there was tears streaming down my eyes. I was sitting by a tree, and I just started yelling at the top of my lungs, and not like a yell. Like, it was such a cathartic moment. It was just, there was a yell of this pain that I feel like it was the collective pain that I was touching into. And I got in touch with it. I felt this collective pain, and I felt like a lot of it was this fear. I really connected with this fear of death, and I really went into it, and it came up, and there was this compassion with this fear of death. Like, I'm feeling it now. It makes me a little emotional when I speak about it, because before there was a resistance to it, and now when it came up, it was like, because two things came up: the fear of death, but then as well the enormous beauty and appreciation for life. Because in that moment, everything, when all this stuff was released, everything was alive. There was this, and you've experienced this before, this aliveness, this, the nature was communicated. I felt it in this, my soul, this oneness with everything, just feeling of alive and this immense gratitude for being alive. So when that feeling of death came up, it was like, yeah, I get that, you know, this, I, f- there's such a appreciation and a love for life. And so I embraced that feeling of death with compassion, this fear of it and this pain. And, you know, it was like, yeah, it's painful to this idea of letting go, you know, you know, and this appreciation for the body. I feel like I went way off from what you originally asked me, but
No,
yeah,
because you'd said the letting go of the past and the old conditioning, and at that moment you're stepping into the new. And guess we can't move into the new until we let go of the past.
yeah,
You've got to step into that.
yeah,
And that opening that you experience, you know, and I guess the range of emotions that I felt at that time, I guess, differs between different people.
yeah,
But you know what? It's, you know, I guess the ego self never wants to let it itself is the thing that's being, is holding on to whatever it is, and to see that. And of course, the next step is always fresh in the moment. It's new,
yeah,
never been experienced before.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. That's one of the things that also came up is a few things happened in that experience is so there were some people that were on the other side of the lake, um, and they were, you know, they were hanging out, and you know, they were um, they were what some people may you know, some people may, what is the right word, put them in a stereotypical kind of put them in a stereotype, you know, they were African American males, dress in a certain way and smoking weed, you know, and so I felt like, for me, that came up as well, you know. So there was this part that felt like I was being judgmental towards them, you know. So even me being African American, I was noticing how I stereotype people and how there's this fear. When I first came to that location, there was this kind of on edge, how I've kind of picked that up from the collective, and I noticed that. But then when I went through that experience, and when I was going through the yelling and crying and stuff, you know what the first thought was I can, the one people that I think would identify with what I'm going through right now would be them. I didn't feel any sort of judgment, you know, like I felt like I could go over to them and talk to them. And one person came over to me, and they were like cleaning the nature, like just picking up trash and stuff. And I said, I really appreciate what you do. And that was a fresh moment for me. So there was this kind of seeing this other reality, you know, in this moment, seeing these parts that were judging, that, you know, that I took on, and how all of that came up and transformed the way, you know, like I had new eyes. I was seeing everything in a different light, you know.
Yeah, and you step into new things. As you were speaking, I'm reminded of a story myself. You know, I've been reading spiritual books for many, many years now, and I had shelves full of the stuff. Shelves full of Ravada Vahashi, Eckhart Tolle, and so on.
Yeah.
But you know what? One thing, Ade, I used them because when I was honest at one point, I liked having them there. It had become part of my identity, Yeah, I've got these books there. And there was an inauthenticity in that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can read them, but I think I was using them to boost myself, to say, oh, I've read them, rather than take they says in the Dead Poet Society, suck the marrow out of life. And it's not in the books, it's in your life to express who you are. And so even in my spiritual practice, there was a deep inauthenticity there.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that straight away. That came after many years. And then I had to be honest and say, I realized I did enjoy having them there. And then, slowly I got rid of the books, And because I think all the teachers say, it comes through you. The books and the words are just a pointer, aren't they? They're a pointer to something that can't actually be expressed in words.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that many of the old teachers never actually wrote books. It was just the followers who wrote the books.
Yeah.
And to see that inauthenticity and to admit it, that took quite a while. Because I enjoyed it. I liked having them there, I liked it a lot, yeah. But it was like I was reading about an orange juice, looking at orange juice, but never tasting the orange juice.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And there came a time when the reading about it and watching it and hearing people talk about the oneness of life and whatever, it wasn't enough to experience it authentically for yourself.
Yeah.
And for that, I think you have to, in this case, put the books down. In another case, put the judgments of other people down. In another case, put down the right or wrongs. How does your creativity express through you or through me? How does it? And I think that's the question. And I think that's something that we're born with. Each child is totally unique.
Yeah.
And I guess each parents can say, they're, even with twins, they got completely different characters.
Yeah.
How does it express through you? And to look at the layers of conditioning, and lots of it is past trauma as well, isn't it? Passed down from family, ancestors. How does it express through you? That's what I would like to know when I meet somebody, and I guess that's what you like to know when you meet someone else. And there's that vibrancy, and there's that vibrancy there as well.
Yeah.
And then from there, I guess from there is not the word. From where you are at that moment. So even our title, moving into inauthenticity, is not moving into, it's here.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's, so I guess we can look at, even the question of today's show. moving in moving into, it's not, it's in, it's here, it's not to be found.
Yeah.
Peel away the onion. So we get the onion and peel it away. Pull it down a bit. And what's underneath? And that's quite magical, isn't it? To think you're peeling away and what's underneath is totally unique to Ade, Ram, Kwame, Freddie across the road.
Yeah. And one question is, so in terms of peeling the onion, so I notice with myself is one of my protective ways, or what I would call protective ways, is I go like this. I smile, my face gets kind of like you know, like if I took a bunch of Botox or something and I can't relax it out of this, like, I see, so, yeah, yeah, you know, and it's exhausted. So, yeah. Yeah, I hope, so that's the, like, you know, kind of, stay, everything is safe. I'm hiding behind here. So now that I gave myself up, so, you know, you said what's behind here. So like peeling back the onion, and then, you know, there's the fear that grips. So it's like, yeah, breathe in. Then there's the feeling of, okay, this not allowing to take space, not deserving to, something has to happen. And then it goes back to, you know, that. Oh, oh. You know, so then the breathing. And so how do we know when it's authentic or not? How do we know what is, let's say, for just for playing around, let's say the inauthentic is the ego and the soul is the authentic. So the ego is bent on survival. It's the I'm okay, yeah, you know, for this Ade personality, you know. And even the one in, and I can see there is some intent. How much does intent have to play in it? Because behind everything that is being said now, there is some intent for approval, you know, and maybe some of that is natural. So there is this human quality, you know, this humanness, where we'll call it the humanity, you know, the survival part, the need for social approval and this sort of thing. And so, so do we get rid of all of that, or do we carry that along with us? And how does that part have a place in this new authentic expression that is taking place? You know, so how do we move forward? You know, with that being there, you know, can we be alive? Can we be human without any of this sort of a friction, sort of this human part, this survival part?
I think we're going to always have thoughts and feelings, and maybe fears will always arise.
Yeah.
But I feel that there's something inside when you know it, when you know it's the right thing you're doing, and and you're totally honest with yourself,
Yeah.
and you feel it. Because I think as well, inauthenticity, playing in a role, creating images is tiring.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're carrying luggage around, you're carrying baggage around with you. But you know what? Like you said, Ade, sometimes you can carry luggage for so long you forget that you've been carrying it.
Yeah.
And that requires, I think, just to sitting and being still with it. Because often we never sit and be still and look and actually ask the question, what do I want and who am I? Imagine, I don't recall ever in school, university at all being asked the question, who am I?
No.
What are you passionate about? Not once. And I only understood education when I left education.
Yeah.
I met a great friend. She was my girlfriend at the time, and I met her in Amsterdam, and she was studying anthropology. So she came over from Amsterdam to stay with me in London, and she would bring her work with her. And when she studied, I could see the joy in what she was doing. You know what? And she'll go, Ron, read this, and I'll read it. And I was surprised because I had gone through the whole of school, university, and college without seeing anybody actually enjoy what they're studying.
Yeah.
And to see that, and it made me realize that for all these years, firstly, I never heard about anthropology before, but you know what? There was something which when she was writing, it didn't mean it was easy for her. Of course, she had to work hard, but I could sense it that it was just real. She really wanted to do this. She was passionate about her subject.
Yeah.
And when she shared it, she was sharing more than the subject with me. She was sharing a joy of doing something. And imagine this, Ade, that was over 20 years ago, and I remember. And now I'm talking about it with you right now. That's how much it changed my life.
Yeah.
I had gone through the whole of my education being inauthentic, doing things I didn't want to do. But to connect with somebody who was really enjoying what they did allowed the onions, the peeling to fall away from me and to explore new things. So when you're being authentic, it's not just for you.
Yeah.
It's for everybody.
Yeah.
But you don't see it that way because the kind of I self about me is not really there. So I think authenticity, has to affect the world. And I know I may be going, out there, but in a single consciousness, there is just one, isn't there? So if it's resonating through you, it must connect with all living things. And can we live in that magic and mystery? Can we eat the orange rather than talk about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because how orange tastes to you, Ade, will be different to how it tastes to me. But when you describe how it tastes, I don't want the dictionary version. Oh, it's orange and it tastes sweet and it's a bit sour and so on. No, to you it may be whatever. Okay, then. Ade, how does an orange taste to you, or any fruit? Pick one fruit.
Okay. A mango, ripe mango.
Okay.
It tastes sweet. Yeah, delicious. Yeah. Juicy.
And think of words that go with that.
It,
Feelings that go with that.
it also tastes like in some ways it tastes like, for me, it tastes like my ancestors. That's what I think of as well, because mangoes are really big in St. Vincent in the West Indies. And so when I eat it, I'm thinking of, I think of my grandmother, my mom. I think of when we went to St. Vincent years ago, and we ate the most delicious mangoes. So yeah, that's what I think of. It's all that experience. That's all part of how it tastes.
And then I think of the first time, the sweet taste of it. Also, the first time I picked a ripe one, I was in Tobago. I think of the color of it and the shape of it, and it's like this ball of this sensations which go off in your mouth, and when you peel it and you cut it back, and also sunshine, of course. And I remember going to the ocean in Tobago, and I ran across the beach with my cousin Keith, who was about, I must have been about 9, he must have been like 17 at the time. And Keith is running down the beach. And my other cousin said he always runs down the beach before he goes into the sea. And then he went into the sea. And then later on, we came back and had them.
Mm.
I think this is what we're talking about.
Yeah. So it's being in real time, being here now. Can you hear that in the background?
No, what was that?
My eldest daughter. Yeah, I have a friend that I was visiting with recently. We're hanging out, and yeah, she's always present in the moment, and I felt really insecure because she was a mirror. Because everything, like, she walks slower, she does everything slower, she's just appreciating, she's looking at the buildings, she's just stopping here, she's looking at she notices everything. Like, I'm forgetting, and therefore I'm noticing all of my little quirks and insecurities and self-judgments and all of that stuff, because I couldn't hide. I have this hiding nature with someone who's just themselves and would just say what they want and need and just speak honestly, very direct. And I'm just like, well, my whole kind of beating around the bush and everything. And so that passion, that authenticity for just for everything, like just for being in the moment that she has, had a profound change in my, like, it anyway, my mind just like, I was just like, whoa, one day. And it was kind of like was worth like years of teaching and books and anything like that, and yeah, so
I think you said it perfectly. She was a mirror. She's the still pond that the moon can reflect on.
exactly.
And it allows you to see all of these things. And if you can embrace that an opening can come through. I guess at the beginning there can be a resistance. Oh, what's going on? I don't, feel really uncomfortable. No. But I guess you're with someone that you trust.
Yeah.
So it allowed you then to, whoa, I can see my little quirks, and obviously really, I'd like to be as still as she is, yeah, or
Yeah.
as present as she is, yes.
Yeah, even the part that wanted to blame, like criticize, I was trying to find something in her to kind of like, the ego wanted to find some sort of way out, some escape, something to hide in. But the awareness of all of this, was seen, and there was some compassion with it. And I told her, I said, yeah, you're like, once I told her what was going on, everything just fell away. And it was just like kids just playing and just kind of like just noticing this part that was nervous, maybe noticing the childhood, kind of the child Ade, that where these things originated, and feeling that essence, feeling that, maybe you could call it a I don't know, some people call it an entity or something, you like feeling that and bringing that along with me, so, okay, you can be here, come along, it's okay, and and that can be expressed, through creative work and things like that, and it was a this it's really beautiful to get in touch with that, and to be able to say, um like, to notice the kind of the part that wants to the part that wants to say, no, don't say that, no, don't be that way, like, no, where are you going to go with this, no, what's going to happen, I don't know where I'm going to go with this, like, I was at home yesterday, about to go to bed, and I was on this social media a lot throughout the day, and just browsing endlessly and wasting time. And every time I would do it, pick up the phone, there was this part, you failure, look what you failed again. And so I finally like caught it, and I'm like, wait a minute, let's just stop for a minute, okay? I hear you, you failed it, okay, I hear you. Okay, but let's see. What can we do now? Let's do it. Like you said, what all that we like, it's within us. It's not in a book. It's here. It's not gonna, but I have to take the stop and access it and let it find its way, So, and what I ended up doing is just naturally it came out. It just made some noises, did some I did it in a totally different way than the just and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I have a new meditation that I've been doing, and I won't say the word because I don't want YouTube, when we put this on YouTube, they sometimes kind of block things. But I call it the FUCK meditation because I grew up never cursing, so I just wouldn't. In the last few months, I've just been cursing, and that's a way to just express. So sometimes I'll sit on the meditation mat and do the FUCK meditation. So I'll just say the word with expression, F, F, just like getting it out and seeing, testing because there's this part that feels like I'm going to be punished. Well, let the punishment come. Where was that from? Like, who's doing the punishment? Where's that punishment coming from? There's a thought of blasphemy. to feel so good, to feel blissful, to feel happiness, to have this energy come within, rise up through the chakras and feel it through in the heart and feel like, oh no, I shouldn't, I need to repress some of this joy, some of this bliss, some of this authenticity, I want to sing, I want to, the dancing and everything else. So where does that feeling of blasphemy and punishment come from? Like, so that's a question that I sometimes ask myself. And I find that when it comes, I can just go, you just do little things, let the soul come. The soul is meeting this new, like it's expressing. The soul is just saying, this is the soul speaking now. The soul is just saying, I'm choosing love today. I'm not like holding back. I'm taking up time. I'm being here. I'm being seen unapologetically. This is who I am in this moment. And while that fear is there, yes, you can be here too. I love you too. And that can be here. That's the collective fear that keeps, that some people maybe knowingly or unknowingly take advantage of to keep us in line, to keep the sheep in the herd, to keep everyone making money, to keep everyone like Charlie Chaplin would say, in his movies, another, what is it? Spoke in a cog in the wheel, he in one of his films, he goes around one of those cogs, like physically a big, huge one, and he's spinning around. So, he becomes the machine. He's working on the line in the factory, and then it goes faster and faster and he can't keep up, and then he gets dragged away and he becomes part of the machine. So we fall into line and then we become one of the machines until the soul says no. The soul says no, we gotta, I'm not doing it anymore. The ego runs the show for a little while until the soul comes up and expresses. So, that's what I think is going to happen. It's part of the process for, everyone. In my opinion.
Yeah, and this machine distorts you, it bends you, it folds you to fit into different spots and areas. And this machine doesn't allow any individuality at all because it's part of this collective system that you have to work towards to get this. And I think at first it's kind of seeing the machine.
Yeah.
Then maybe there's raging against the machine.
Yeah.
Acknowledging machine. And then you see, I am not this machine. I'm not this machine.
Yeah.
I'm not a cog in a wheel. And we see that in nature. No two blades of grass are the same. No two oak trees are the same.
Yeah.
No two roses are the same. And if we saw two oak trees arguing and saying, oh, I've got more leaves than you, we will say the oak tree's crazy.
Yeah.
But we do this. And, so it's to look at it. And then we can look at the absurdity of it all. And then we can also look at the absurdity of ourselves trying to fit into this costume that we called me.
Yes. Yes. That's
It's a very
beautiful.
tight,
You're bringing everything to life now.
yeah,
Keep
and
going.
it's a very tight fitting costume because it's very restrictive. You can only move in a certain way, and it's kind of encased in this body.
Yeah.
So, with the costume on, do you have to fight it to see it, or is it just that we unzip it and we see it for what it is? And I think when it's truly seen, all of the anxieties and fears and trying to submit to others' way that you should be, I mean, truly seeing it, really seeing it, then we see it, we have a new perspective of everything. And we'll have a new perspective of how we view nature,
Yeah.
how we view life, how we view other people.
Mm.
Because now we're going to also see not only our costume, but other people's costumes.
Yeah.
And not through judgment saying, oh, I've taken mine off and you still got one on. No, it's we see the reality of who they really are beyond the costume.
Yeah.
Which is maybe what your friend did with you when she's speaking with you in that presence and stillness.
Yeah.
And that may be one of the reasons why it was possible to see it at that moment, because she was seeing beyond the costume.
Yeah.
And that's quite extraordinary, because then it's magic and it's play.
Yeah.
So can we play? Can we learn the lessons from your son, the children I have in my maduration class? Can we see what they do and join in with them? Because we don't know the extraordinary things that come out of it.
Yeah.
And us talking here right now, when we first exchanged a message 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, Ade, did we ever think that we will be here right now?
No.
It wasn't even in the equation. Wasn't even thinking about it. Was Tony Bear even something you thought about? I don't know. Sumarati and Drede, was it even anything we've talked about? You've met some of my friends through the talks when we did the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So our nation is not restricted by national boundaries anymore.
Yeah.
We've seen that it can go out because now we're talking to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that if it's done with authenticity and trust, like I said before, it has to spread out. There's nothing else it can do. So maybe just keep that question with you always when the fear arises. Who am I? How can I be me? And not in a meditative sense where you're questioning all the time, but just,
Yeah.
you know, okay, and give yourself a second and not get caught up in time.
Yeah.
Give yourself just this moment where we can, okay, there's no need to rush today. No need to sprint to go down there. Just and allow it to not by you, but allow it to come through you.
Yeah.
And that in itself, if we think in that way, it's coming through us, but not by us. It's not then an egoic tendency, isn't it? It's not, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. No, the words came out.
Yeah.
The painting came out. The song came out.
Just like when you have to use the bathroom, it just comes out.
And there's nothing you can do about it. It just go. If you gotta go, you gotta go. Yeah. 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 See, you know what I mean? Just that as well. You know, when we can talk about these issues, but then we can laugh at it as well. You know, I think that is just the amazing thing.
Yeah, because I think it's meant to be that way. You know, that's the kids aren't very. You know, they will put 100% attention on something, fully into it, but you know, it's just there's not this seriousness about it until, and I noticed this about myself. I know almost exactly when it was in my development where I would do things for the joy and playfulness of it, where things just became work. And I started pretending to be an adult. Like, oh, okay, this means this, or I have to do this to get blah, 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 blah.
Do you know what I mean? I think being an adult may be one of the biggest costumes that we wear.
Yeah.
Being a so-called adult. This is what adults do. Fitting into that, you know, I think that's one of the, and they don't tell us this when we're children. they don't tell us this, you know, no, being grown up, whatever that means. You can be an 8-year-old and have wisdom beyond your means. And you can have 50-year-olds who can behave in a completely immature manner.
Yeah.
Adults do this, children do that. There's a line. Do you know what? I read this article a while ago now, and it said that in indigenous communities there was no such thing as work. So they may have been doing chores, but it wasn't seen as work. It was seen as there was a playful nature to it. So we've taken this thing on of work, something that, you know, mature adults you have to do. But I think there was from reading this article, it was like there was a sense of playfulness in everything they did. Yeah. And a sense of meditation in everything they did.
Yeah.
And it was part of who they were. It wasn't, I'm going to do this, now I'm going to go to the meditation class. It was the hunting, the growing the food, the building of the temple. That was work, meditation, who I am, were all, it was part of, intrinsic to who you are.
Yeah.
Not something we went out on a Saturday morning to do a meditation yoga class. It was, we did it every day. So maybe that's the natural way of who we really are. We've just been caught up in this web of a matrix that has been created around us.
Yeah, I think part of it is to part of it is I think we do things to sort of check them off of the list to feel this sort of sense of well-being and like this sense of well, I'm good enough, I'm safe, I've done this. Now okay, just do this. Okay, now I could kind of a sense of relief, you know, so sourcing our sense of self from external things rather than coming from, you know, which I think maybe some of these indigenous people already were in touch with, being in touch with the soul nature and then expressing from there, you know. So I think it's and there's a lot of interesting stories, about how we lose our soul nature, and then we go through this process of regaining it, throughout life. And there's some old stories. I'm reading a book now that has a lot of stories about this.
Oh yes, of course, yes. I forgot to.
Yeah, but we won't go into it because it's
Yeah.
but it's a great book. There's a lot of stories and archetypes. It's called Women Who Run with the Wolves, and I'm really enjoying it. So like for those who want to learn how to get in touch with their authentic self and how to continue to let that flourish, and some of the booby traps along the way in that process, this is an excellent book for that. They go into a lot of, the author goes into a lot of using stories and a lot of old stories, that capture this process. I just there's a question. I wanted to read some of the Facebook comments.
Okay.
Okay, so Ade, you sound great. Ade, you look really handsome in that shirt. Ade, your beard is looking really good. Ade, I love everything you have to say. No, I'm just kidding. um, let's see. Okay, here we go. So my friend Vanita, I think you know Vanita, she wrote, I can relate. Being authentic is perhaps the hardest thing, and yet perhaps a lot of frustration stems from the fact that we're not able to express ourselves fully and freely. And she also says, repression, yes, that's the word. Lena Kane, or is it Lena? Ron and I were debating this before. Is it Lena or Lena Kane? So I love this conversation. And she also says the need for belonging. And actually, Lena or Lena asked a question. What support, and maybe we can kind of end with this, begin to
Okay.
wrap up with this question, because we're at an hour and a half. What support do you need in place in order to be your authentic self? So why don't you take a crack at that?
What support do you need in place? The first thing that comes through is support of yourself, to trust yourself, to be honest with yourself, to be true to yourself. And I think within that brings its own support structure in itself. And then from there, you're able to go out and you may try new things, they may not work, but you have the honesty that you have given it a go. So I think it's always, start with yourself, support yourself, trust yourself, believe in yourself. You're so much more. We are so much more than these minuscule, tiny beings that we've been told that we are. I'll say to anybody who writes that question, the fact that you've written it, the answer is in there. And to start from there. And you know what? A great practice is sometimes is to look in the mirror. To honestly look in the mirror, and maybe just to, you know what? I am good enough. I am enough. I can do this, because in the day there are so many negative thoughts going on. So if we can give ourselves 2 minutes just to say, I can, I am, I can do this. I can achieve that. And you know what? I'm not even achieving anything out there. I am enough, and go from there.
Yeah.
And that's and that makes you, just in that one statement phrase, an extraordinarily powerful being.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And speaking of that, right on my desk, I have one of those, and this is me as a kid, and this is one thing that I try to read in the morning. So it's similar to what you said. Um, and in and I'll answer Lena. Lena. Sorry, I wasn't sure if it's Lena. First of all, I would say uh, I'll say Lena. You say Lena, right? So,
I say Lena,
and
yes.
I'll say Lena. Um, writes beautifully. She does a lot of. She's been doing years and years and years of been on the path and doing a lot of work, and I think very evolved and terrific writing. She's also a creative person. So I know that you do the art, the
Oh, okay.
podcast. So
Yes.
you may want to consider having her on. I think she'd be great. And she does music, sound healing, and uh, writes and does art and a bunch of things. Um, so I'll answer the question. Yeah, I'll what you said, and I'll add on one of the things. One of the supports that I found helpful is actually finding people that you trust and that you can express to, and that you leave feeling seen and feeling heard without judgment or no, you should do it this way or that way. You got to be very, use your power of discernment. So there, we have these powers, and we may not want to, especially in the beginning where you're just beginning to experiment, and like you're just beginning to walk. you know um Ron was one of the people I shared stuff. I have a spiritual group, Trillium Awakening, that small groups, and I'm able to share some things also with my teacher, and also with friends, like the friend I spoke to you about, and just people that I feel comfortable with. Actually, also my mom. My mom has been very, very supportive. I'll like FaceTime her and I'll just say how I'm feeling, and different than what I used to. I used to kind of squirm and kind of like try to hide, and things like that. And my mom, so I'm able to just share, yeah, I'm feeling this way, feeling insecure or whatever. And so finding people that you can express to and play with and feel like you're seen. So I think those are one of the a really good support. Also, if you need to, therapy could be good if that's something that you need. And what else? I don't know.
Being able to ask the question, Ade, even that is, and being able to express it to someone that you trust. Just
Yeah.
even asking the question, I think it opens something up. Lena asked the question, we're talking about it. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
that
yeah,
opens something up. Just in it, we're doing the thing, the question is being spoken about and maybe given a reply to answered right now.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel a connection with Lena. I've never spoken to her. And this is something, So even just the opening up and speaking about question, fears, and doubts.
Yeah, that's important. And I think all of these sort of, you could even write a one thing I did is as I wrote a sort of boundary thing. So I call it, what are my boundaries for cultivating and being in love, just choosing love. And so certain things that I that I kind of put in place to enable me to, to express an authentic. So I give myself time, to do things that I normally wouldn't do. Just giving myself permission to breathe, giving myself permission to pause and not have to say an answer right away, or to come up with the next clever thing, which is rare in my case. They usually come right away, but but just giving setting up some boundaries, the things that I need, I for in certain relationships to be able to be authentic. So you can set, maybe you spoke about that as well. You can set those things up, and then go out there and experiment. I have experimented with people, even strangers, and sometimes it goes well. And sometimes it didn't go so well, and I'm thinking, oh, why did I say that? But yeah, like, I'll tell you a story real quick. So I was on the train, and this woman came on, and this was nothing about like trying to pick. It was furthest thing from my mind. It was just a woman who her outfit was amazing. Like, I saw that the detail she put into putting it together. And normally I would not say anything. And again, there was no, like, I wasn't hitting on her, that I wasn't interested in that way. But I was just recognizing. And I was like, I just want to say you have a beautiful, and so I went in the, say it, no, don't say it. What do you go? Say it, no, don't say it. And so I just spent some time with that fear and said, it's okay. I understand you're afraid, but we choose love today, and we're going to, what's the worst that's going to happen? We don't mean anything about it. It's nothing. And she also, on the train, we had our mask on, and her mask was a Basquiat, the artist, mask, so, and she was singing too. She had headphones, she was singing, and like had a real soulful voice and everything. And I said, excuse me. I finally, and she took it off, and I said, I just want to say your outfit is, really nice. And she was very open, appreciative. She said, oh, thank you. And then I said, yeah, and I like the Basquiat. And she said, yeah, thank you. And I was like, yeah, because I started watching all these Basquiat documentaries, and now the nervousness kicking in, and I'm just starting to speak a lot. And then my dad was obsessed about Basquiat. And then I said, recently I was near Greenwood Cemetery, and, that's where he was buried. So now I'm like bringing death into the picture of like, and she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah. So I'm like, so I saw it. The cemetery had Basquiat, and you're wearing a Basquiat mask and everything, and trying to make the connections to her. And she was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think I get it. So then, I don't know, afterwards, I just felt like there's that voice, like, oh, why did you do that? Why did you like keep talking and talking? And so I know, like, what I said, it's probably not going to be perceived as, no, that was no big deal. But inside, it felt like a big deal. And so I think when we do this, we're going to come up against that voice that says, what the hell are you doing? Don't do it. You see what you did? I told you to be quiet. Don't talk anymore. Don't be the, and I just stopped, and I said, and I just looked in the mirror, like you had said, like when I got to where I was going, I went and I looked in the mirror because I stopped. I remember there's still some of that voice. And I said, I'm really proud of you for doing what you did, like taking that risk and speaking up despite the fear. And I just gave myself a pat on the back. And I was just like, that was really great that you did that, and so I'm just sharing that because for those that are new at it and have a hard time. And I suspect maybe males might have a harder time than women. I think they seem more connected to soul, more kind of letting it express, so, but I think they also, society kind of teaches them to be proper. You got to be like, a woman isn't supposed to do this and do that. And that's actually part of why I'm reading this book is to really understand how much damage society and patriarchy has done, to women, and how it's affected the way our culture is, and a lot of the negative things that are kind of manifesting and taking place in society. Yeah, so that was a.
I think that's maybe a topic we can go into another time. The toxic masculinity,
Yes.
which we have gone. We've gone through it. We see the repercussions of not being able to express. So maybe that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. So we are at an hour and 40 minutes. So I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is long, but really I've listened to podcasts that were 3 hours, 2 hours long. And so I feel like our conversation, I mean, for me, it's been really nourishing. I appreciate you, and I thank you for doing this and being a part of this, because whenever you're sharing yourself and your perspective, it just, I feel it's just so nourishing for me, so I just wanted to say thank you. And
well, thank you, Ade. I think how we've approached, we're not going abstract. We're talking about things we are going through, things that we have seen, actuality, not we've read in a book. And I think that is refreshing, to be able to speak on this way. And thank you to Lena and to anyone else who's watching. Thank you very much. I mean, there's a term that I've got from the teacher Neely Fuller, and it's I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
How are you today? I'm still learning.
I'm still learning.
From Neely Fuller.
And I
think if we come together in this all the time, and it's going to be amazing, because we're going to go forward as soon as it stops. This show stops. The authenticity discussion will carry on in what we do the minute afterwards.
Yeah.
The 2 minutes afterwards. It doesn't stop here. So if we're talking about authenticity, it doesn't finish when we stop this podcast.
No.
It's going to be in what we do in an hour and a half's time, in 2 hours' time, tomorrow, next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Finding your voice, because it's going to be in 5 minutes when we have to do something, or speak up, or express something. That's going to be now.
Yeah. Go to the toilet.
Go to the toilet when you have to. Look in the mirror and laughing at yourself.
And there was a one. Okay, so yeah. So I just want to ask you, my friend Ron. So will you what I need from you, what I'm asking, is that you can be open to me and give the space for me to be as I am, with my nervousness and with my quirks and everything else.
I would say this. I'm here to get to know you. the nervousness, the quirks, the let's go to the toilet line, the ant line, anything, all of it. Because otherwise I'm getting the shell. Let's not be two shells speaking. Let's not be two images in conversation. Let's just do this. You and I, and let's be free. And myself and my stuttering self, and that comes up sometimes, and the not being sure where the guitar, thank you for that. And I think that's why we did this, I think, Ade.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're doing it, to be, if we're nervous, to say we're nervous.
Yeah.
If we're not sure about something, we're not sure about something. If we don't know, we don't know.
Yeah. So
I think that's why we're here.
Yeah. And this feels good. It feels like this is, and like you said, it goes on. So this is a place of creating, co-creating, and I envision beautiful things as it is now, continuing, and yeah. So I'm excited. I'm enthusiastic.
Yeah, and let's create something. So thank you, Lena, and let's move on. And if you have conversations and questions for other people, let's move on together. Let's create something magical that we never even envisaged. And let's not stop with finding a voice at the end of the hour, but let's find our voice in 30 minutes. Yeah. Let's reveal our voice, I'll show you, in 30 minutes. Let's take off the costume and reveal the Superman suit, and let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's not just sit here and talk about it, which is, it becomes abstract then, isn't it? It becomes like the book we had on the shelf. So it's a challenge for both of us. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we're not always going to be successful.
Yeah.
It's not always going to work. But even when it doesn't work, we get a great story out of it.
Yeah. So let's get in touch over the weekend.
Yeah.
Because that always helps, and get the juices flowing, and see what comes up.
And you know what? Let's taste the mango.
Yeah. Yeah. And coffee.
Let's taste the coffee. This has been the second show of the Coffee Diaries, Ade, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Same here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all that whoever joined. Oh, we have 1,000 people. Sorry. No, that's two people.
Thank you, you two. Thank you very much, you two. Thank you.
Thank you.